I've never seen anything like it before, and to attempt to hit the ball out of there is pure madness.
The winner of the gold medal and the champion golfer of the year is Cameron Smith.
This is the one that I've always wanted to win since I was a little kid. So it just feels pretty amazing to be able to get it done today.
It's amazing that it's my destiny to be the first Aussie to win. Just incredible.
Hello and welcome to episode 23 of Playing from the Tips, our special Open Championship preview edition, presented by Golf Australia magazine. I'm your host, Jimmy Emanuel, and guiding you through the details of the 151st Open Championship at Royal Liverpool, ably assisted by two of our so-called experts, one of who brings again into question the so-called element of that title.
I guess I'm being introduced first, am I?
Sure are. First, one of our regulars on the program and a man who has decided to turn over a new leaf of positivity when talking about golf, at least publicly. That being Rod Morrie. Rod, welcome.
I'd already forgotten about that.
I know. I knew you had because I've seen your conversation since
last week.
That's right. Next, with Adrian Logue continuing to tour the Eastern Bloc in search of future gala sites, we bring in Golf Australia magazine columnist and everyone's favourite curmudgeon, John Huggan from On the Ground at the Open. Huggy, welcome.
Nice to be here.
Can I just say, Playing from the Tips 2, Logue 1. These have been two excellent spots.
Yeah, we've gone you and Porter at the Scottish Open into Huggy at the Open.
Yeah.
Logue may not get the spot back.
There's an old saying in media, isn't there, Huggy? Never go on holidays, because when you come back, your job's been taken by somebody else.
I'm not a candidate, let's put it that way.
Huggy, you've been to more Opens than Rod has hosted podcasts, which is some achievement. What still gets you excited about Open Championship week?
That's a difficult one because I'm so old and jaded and cynical. But I still, what gets me excited is thinking back to how excited I used to be.
Nice. I like that.
I was going to say something, but I won't. Don't you reckon, Huggy, for me, and I'm like you, I'm quite cynical, it's the golf. The major weeks, finally, the focus is just on the golf. Week to week, we've got all this other stuff swirling around. But finally, you can just watch golf and appreciate and enjoy golf on great golf courses with great players. I think that's the difference.
Yeah, that's always true at big events. Yeah. I mean, doing what we do for a living, I mean, the Ryder Cup's the worst because it doesn't start till Friday, but you get 4 days of writing about absolutely nothing at the Ryder Cup, and you only get 3 days of it here. But
See,
everything is saved by the golf starting on Thursday. Until then, you can start every story with nothing continues to happen here at the Open.
Great to have you on for our preview show, Huggy. Really looking forward to it. Should be one of our shorter ones.
I'm sure the listeners are agog with indifference at this point. Yeah.
It is the best major for our side being in Australia because of showing at night time.
Yeah, although it goes so
coverage.
If there's an Australian contention, this has happened last year, and this gets harder and harder every year.
Correct.
The older you get, you kind of got to stay up till 4 a.m. to see Cam Smith win, for example, last year. It was a great final round last year, but I must have nodded off 5 or 6 times, and it's always a bit of a haze the next day because you've never been quite fully awake as you've watched it unfold. That's the downside. But you're right. Sit there eating dinner with the golf on. With the golf on is magnificent.
But then you've got Tour de France on as well, and there's cricket. It's great. It's perfect. Sports watcher's dream. Before we go too far ahead this week, let's look back at last week's efforts.
Really? Do we have to?
There was 3 top 10s, so that takes our yearly tally to 125 alongside 17 wins. So
any winners last week?
No winners. No, that Porter brought us down. That was just the facts. But now we go to this week, and much of the focus, and rightly so, will be on Royal Liverpool, located in Hoylake on the Wirral Peninsula. This is the 13th time it welcomes golf's original championship, with the last 2 champions adding to its place in history, with Tiger Woods' highly emotional win in 2006, just weeks after the death of his father, and keeping the driver in the bag almost all week. And then Rory McIlroy won here in 2014, let alone Peter Thompson winning here in 1956 to go back-to-back, Bobby Jones winning part of his 1930 Grand Slam, or probably Huggy's favourite, Roberto Di Vincenzo in 1967.
A great moment.
Yeah.
Now, how many have you been to Royal Liverpool for, Huggy? Just the last 2? Or?
Opens, yes.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah. I have, I actually caddied in the Walker Cup here 40 years ago, 1983.
Who for and what was the result?
I caddied for a friend of mine, Stephen Kepler, English lad, who'd given me a right good doing in the England-Scotland Boys International of 1977.
And was that your punishment to caddy for him after that?
We were friends even despite that, yes. So I caddied for him, and my God, he played rubbish. His driving was terrible.
You mean we played rubbish, Huggy? We played rubbish is what you meant to say there, didn't you?
That's true, yeah. I said to him, if I'd been driving, we might have had a chance. But, he unfortunately, I mean, he was a far better player than me. I have to say that, but he didn't perform, sadly, at the Walker Cup. But I think that was the first time I ever saw Brad Faxon. He played against Stephen in the foursomes, one of the foursomes games.
Okay. Much of the early focus this week is going to be on the new Tournament 17th, a par 3 of just 134 yards that has allowed 15 and 18 to be stretched over 600 yards.
Oh, good.
Just because par 5s need to go over 600 yards. Huggy, it's going to be the talk of the week, and from everything I understand, the new hole actually fits in quite well to the rest of the golf course.
Oh, steady. I haven't heard one positive thing about this hole yet. And I listened to Matt Fitzpatrick in his press conference this afternoon. He was asked about it, and all he would say was it was interesting.
Okay.
And when he was asked to elaborate, he said, "Let's just leave it at that."
Ooh,
okay. There you go.
So,
no fines for Matt Fitzpatrick. That's a veteran move.
That's a veteran player.
He would have fallen for that.
That's
one of the
right.
younger players. And
Yeah.
Is it true, Huggy? I only read this on Twitter. I think it was from David Jones. What's his name? Golf guy. UK golf guy. Something about the members have been told to pick up after 6 if they haven't holed out. That this is the rule on this new 17th. If that's true,
it's a tiny little thing, and it's got these bunkers in front of it. It kind of looks pretty nasty, and it kind of makes the walk a little bit funny as well.
Don't you have to walk from the green all the way back past the 17th tee to get to the 18th tee? Is that
it's some long convoluted stroll, I think, in the middle of the round. I think from what I hear, it's going to play more difficult downwind.
Okay.
It doesn't play downwind very often, but if it does, it's going to be at its hardest.
Sounds like
getting the ball on the green.
Barnbougle June 7th.
Yeah,
that kind of deal.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's way more difficult when it's downwind.
Yeah, into a wind it's great. You smash it up in the air and it's fine.
I saw Mike Clayton hit a 4-iron to about 3 feet into a blazing wind there one day. Strolls up to the green constantly, chatting to his playing partners, and just picks the ball up. Doesn't even putt it.
Yeah,
it's like Clayton.
Makes perfect sense,
doesn't it? It's so Clayton.
He would have left it short right on line.
Very good.
The other big part of Royal Liverpool that I think fans remember probably more than players is the internal out of bounds, which probably comes more into play on 18 with that added length. Do you think, Huggy?
Well, it's normally the first hole. When that famous Walker Cup in 1983, that was the first hole. It is weird. And any time, I've always thought of internal out of bounds as kind of an admission that there's something wrong with your golf course.
Yep.
But it's kind of goofy and quirky, and I kind of like it. To be
is it the exception that proves the rule, Huggy?
Yeah, exactly. And I'm all for the potential disaster being out there for these guys. It's especially on the links, they all moan and groan about how we'll get the bad end of the draw and this and that. Well, just get on with it. For goodness sake, just play.
It's never the guys who win who complain about that, is it, Huggy?
No, because they got the good end of the draw because that proves it. No, because that proves it because they won. So the other guys on the other side, he got the good side of the draw, even though he played in a hurricane.
There is something to it, though, isn't there? I mean, you can understand the frustration, but you just can't let it get you if you expect it to.
Of course.
I mean, if you go back to the Open at St Andrews in 2010, if Rory McIlroy had the same draw as Louis Oosthuizen, Rory would have won that by about 17 shots.
Yeah.
He shot 63 in the first round and then got the wrong end of the draw. I mean, admittedly, he shot 80 in the second round, which was terrible. But had he played first thing in the morning, the time that Louis played, he might have shot 63 again and just disappeared out of sight.
Well, it's rarely the same, but at Augusta this year, Rahm was realistically on the wrong side of the draw with all that weather, and Koepka was on the better side, and he beat him. So that shows you can do it.
Didn't Rory go 2-3 tournaments, like 8 rounds or something, without shooting in the 70s at St Andrews? He had that 63-80, and then he shot 68,
right.
68, 68, 68, just shot a bunch of...
right.
Never shot in the 70s at the old course. Amazing.
Quirky strategic test is kind of Royal Liverpool. But it kind of makes it stand out amongst the other venues, don't you think, Rod?
I do. And look, if you look at the list of champions, it often tells you something. And the winners here are all class, and there is certain, the last two have been a certain type of player, power players, the modern quintessential golfer. Peter Thompson was the quintessential links golfer. So, yeah, I think that's what I remember I played there with BJ in 97, the editor of Golf. I've got a feeling he might have shot 5 under.
Oh, it's a perfect Brendan James golf course.
Very much so. You just play...
Where you've got to, if you're not a power player, you've got to be what I like to call a nerdler, where you just like a little off-speed shots. And BJ is the greatest nerdler of all time.
Picturing BJ in my mind. Tell me if I'm right here, Huggy. And nerdler is not a word that springs to mind when I think of the big man.
I think prop forward is the word you're looking for.
Yeah, indeed. The bunkers are nasty. That's what I remember. I had a couple of bunker shots, and they are seriously nasty. Deep, vertical faces. Doesn't matter how good a golfer you are. There's often just no escape forward from the bunkers, and so really, really penal stuff. But it'll be interesting golf because it'll test the mind, won't it, Huggy? And discipline. Everyone's going to have, a bit like a US Open, but in a different way, everyone's going to have a bad hole or hit into a diabolical spot at some point and run up a number. Almost every player in the field. It's those who can just put that behind them and get on with it. They'll be the ones who creep forward, I think. It feels like that sort of course to me.
Yeah, it does. And the weather is going to be a factor. If the forecast is right, it's going to be a bit all over the place. We've had really heavy showers the last 2 or 3 days, and that's supposed to continue into the rest of the week. It was funny driving. I drove down from Scotland this morning, and it's weird the weather we get here. 1 minute you're in this torrential downpour, and 2 minutes later you're driving along, and it's an area where there's been no rain at all. It's not as if you've just kind of gone out of it. There's no rain. 2 minutes from where it was torrential.
You sure you're not in Melbourne, Huggy? You sure you're not in Melbourne?
Sorry?
Are you sure you're not in Melbourne?
That does sound a bit like Melbourne. You're right. Anyway, that's the kind of thing we're going to see this week. So that you could get unlucky with the weather, not just the draw in terms of the time.
Yeah, I spoke to David Micheluzzi last night, who's there. He actually got there, the longest major prep I've ever heard in my life. He got there last Monday.
Oh, yeah.
Because he had nowhere to play. He played the British Masters, played the Maiden Himland, and then didn't have anywhere to play. So he went, I may as well just go. And he said... Broaden
your horizons, champ. Go to a museum or something.
Yeah, well...
An art gallery.
Not Micah's sort of... Not
Read
his
a
sort
book.
of bag, but... He's played it, I think he said 4 times yesterday. He was heading out to play again yesterday. And he said, I've played it in a wind from every single direction. I've played it with rain. I've played it with heat. I've played it with everything. He goes, I have no idea what it's going to be. And so I think the weather is going to be a really interesting one because, of course, Tiger in 06 was when it was baked out.
Yeah,
It was a completely different thing. We're going to see nothing quite like that this week.
We saw that rain thing you're talking about last week at the Scottish Open, Huggy. I was watching that at the Renaissance, and there were guys putting out on the 15th green, perfectly dry, no umbrellas. Halfway up the 16th fairway, they had the brollies. It was almost hailing. It couldn't have been more than a couple hundred yards in between the two. It's just bizarre. So
it can almost be that localised. You're right. I mean, I can certainly see guys at the far end of Hoylake being, in perfect sunshine, and at the other end, it's chucking it down.
Yeah.
So that's entirely possible.
Yeah, indeed.
Now we've discussed the golf course, let's talk about some players. And Huggy, you were there for a few interviews today, press conferences. Anyone say anything interesting or outlandish?
Matt Fitzpatrick's interesting.
I only sat in on Fitzpatrick's because I was writing a piece on the brothers who played in the Open. Which my favourite one of that, by the way, just in passing, was Harry Varden won the Open at Prestwick in 1903, and his brother Tom was the runner-up.
Oh.
So
it's a family dynamic, isn't it? Makes for an interesting dinner that night.
Yeah, and I won't bore you with too
gonna...
many other ones, but this is the first Open where there's been 2 sets of brothers in the field, first time since 1985 that's happened.
They are the Fitzpatricks and the
Hoygarts.
I was going to say, I always get the pronunciation wrong. Yeah, the twins. Good work, Huggy. Well
and Nikolai only got in late. Okay. The Fitzpatrick brothers went and played a practice round with 2 Australians yesterday as well.
Did they?
So there you go.
Just to expand their vocabulary?
That's right. In terms of players to watch this week, it's the typically top of the tree. basically, at the majors. There's obviously the chance at an outsider, and we'll talk a bit about those a bit later. But Cam Smith defends after last year beating Rory McIlroy with an excellent final round, in particular back 9, and comes in off a win on the Liv circuit. Rory wins last week in Scotland with a magical 2-iron to beat Bob McIntyre.
What a week.
Scotty Scheffler, T3 last week, that takes his streak of finishing tied 12th or better to 19 straight tournaments. Which is...
It's like Tiger Light, isn't it?
It's some of the best ball striking you ever see.
I said last week he was like Qantas, and at some point it's got to end. Maybe what's got to end is he's got to putt well at some point.
Well, that's right, and just win. That's right.
And he'll just win, yeah.
John Rahm, of course, who's kind of gone a little bit quiet because he hasn't played that much since he won the Masters. Matt Fitzpatrick was another one on my list because whenever there's a strategic golf course, Matt Fitzpatrick stands out and played a lot of links golf, of course. Tommy Fleetwood is in outstanding form, and when you talk Royal Liverpool, you think ball strikers. And then Dustin Johnson and Brooks Koepka look to be in pretty good form as well.
No surprises in any of that, is there?
Any adds to that list from anyone that's particularly
Not off the top of my head. I'll
interesting?
be more interested in get Huggy's thoughts on. Can any of them not win, Huggy? Could we rule any of them out, even though they're in top players in the world? Does this course not favour one of them or some of them?
Well, Fitzpatrick wasn't exactly talking himself up this afternoon. He's not playing the greatest, which he really admitted, and his record in the Open is not that good.
No.
It's surprising, but it's just not. It doesn't seem to fit his eye, as he put it. He's never really distinguished himself. The only time he's done really well in the Open, you could argue, is 10 years ago. He won the silver medal as an amateur at Muirfield. So. Yeah, I would, if you were going to knock one out, that would be the one I would choose. Yeah. And I think he would, based on what he said this afternoon, I think he would back that up.
But every now and then, Huggy, isn't that, you can't make it a deliberate strategy, but that can work in a player's favour, can't it? A player like Fitzpatrick with no expectations, plays more freely than he perhaps normally does. Maybe he's just been putting too much pressure on himself in the Open or whatever. Can go the other way. You can get to Thursday morning and suddenly you find something, you shoot a good first round. If you shoot a good first round in a major, you're going to be in it Sunday if you play half decent from there on. So
He'd strike me as the kind that if the weather was a bit ordinary early, it'd help. Just start thinking about just controlling the ball flight and getting it around and trying to make a score.
He's got such an active mind, Huggy. Like he's a bit Jordan Spieth-like on the golf course. It just never stops with him, does it?
Yeah. He's a total geek when it comes to golf. I mean, he did say something interesting, which might back up what you just said, is that he much prefers grinding out pars than to play in a tournament where 20 under is going to win. Yep. He didn't seem to. That wasn't proper golf as far as he was concerned. No, but give him a hard par 4 into a wind, and he's your man.
Yeah. That was David Micheluzzi yesterday, because I've seen him play a lot of golf, and I sort of said, I think if the weather was a bit ordinary, you'd kind of like that and stuff. He said, oh yeah, no, there is a limit. He says when you can't hold your umbrella when it's getting away from you, I think that's a bit extreme.
We saw that last week, didn't we? Who took their hat off? One of the players had to take their hat off.
There was a lot without their hats off last week. Oh, yeah. The other, Cam Smith's obviously a big focus for Australian people. Again, spoke to him last week, and driver is the concern for Cam. Hasn't driven the golf ball well this year. Thinks he's done some work that is going to fix it up. To win that event in London, he did not drive it that well on the last day. And this is an important golf course with driving the golf ball. I think everyone thinks of Tiger in 06 and thinks, you don't hit driver anywhere at Royal Liverpool. Yeah, that is not the case at all. So his title defence will really hinge on that golf club.
Helps when you hold a 4-iron for your second on. It was at day 2, I think Tiger did that, didn't he? Huggy 4-iron off the tee and then hold it for his second from
box at 4-iron helps.
Yeah,
100 and 120.
Yeah.
Look, I know Koepka won the PGA, but I'm still not convinced about this live golf as preparation for majors kind of idea. I just don't know. I'm not saying it Koepka proved, obviously, you can play live golf and win a major, but I'm not sure. For a player like Cam's a real competitor. Got a great match play record. Won the Australian Amateur in amazing fashion against a guy hitting it 40 yards past him. It was 5 down at lunchtime, and they shook hands on the 15th green in the afternoon round. He just clinically carved him up.
Jeff Drakeford, I'm sure really thanks Mike Clayton for telling that story. Any chance he
get. Over again. But that kind of player, I'm not sure the lighter schedule necessarily works so well for Cam. I don't know. I'm not saying.
I think, speaking with him on last week, he sort of spoke about how he struggled earlier in the year because he wasn't playing enough and he was trying to get his rhythms right and everything like that. And I think that's one of the things when you're not setting your own schedule Some guys might be coming in and go, oh, I need another hit, I'll go to Scotland. Or some guys
There's
will go,
no option there.
I don't need another hit, I'm going to take the week off and get there early. So I think that it does work against in some cases.
This is going to sound weird, but for some golfers, being happy is not the best frame of mind.
No.
And there's no doubt Cam's very happy with his lot, and that may not be the best thing for his golf, Huggy. What do you think about that?
Well, I do think that he's being hurt by this live thing, and I know he's done reasonably well in the majors this year, but that's simply because he's one of the best players.
Yep.
He's getting by on that fact, but it's he hasn't really looked like he might win any of them. And I think that is where he's being hurt, and that's what it's shown with him. I mean, he's just on a higher level than a guy who's plodding along and live it and not showing, maybe struggling to make the cut in the majors. That's not what he's about. I do think it's hurting him. And just for some of the reasons that you just said, and I do. The courses, generally speaking, are easier on the Live Tour. So the scoring, I pay absolutely no attention to the scoring on that circuit because it doesn't really bear much relation to what you see in tour golf. And I do think that it's hurt him because I think he would have at least contended had he stuck with proper golf, if you like. He would at least have been in with a shout on a Sunday afternoon, at least one major so far this year. But that hasn't happened. And I think the reason is because he's out of practice a little bit.
Yeah, when you consider that majors are won and lost by a shot, it's like the margins are so incredibly fine at the top level of the game, and it might be one drive that finds the wrong lump of grass.
Absolutely,
that could be the end of it for the week. So.
With all that in mind, let's get a tip for a winner from each of us, and Rod will go to you first.
I just can't go past Rory, only because he deserves it, having hit the two best shots of the year last week, one in the practice round with a persimmon driver and the other a 2-iron into a par 4, which we haven't seen in professional golf for Huggy's been around the game longer than I have. I can't remember the last time we saw a 2-iron into a par 4 at an important moment.
Well, Bob McIntyre hit 3-wood in there.
John Vandervelde in 99 was a 2-iron into the idiot, but for that reason. And Rory just looks good.
All right, so Huggy, a tip from you for the week, for a winner?
I'm going with Tommy Fleetwood. I think he's just kind of bubbling under at the moment, and there's a great tournament in him just waiting to happen, and he's the local hero and all the rest of it here, so I'm going with him.
I don't think anyone would bemoan Tommy Fleetwood winning.
Not at all. Not on either side. It'd be great to see him have a first tour win too.
To win anything ever.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
What about Rory after he wins last week and he goes to go hug his daughter and his wife tells him, oh, she's waiting to give Tommy a hug? That's got to hurt.
It does happen. Who was it? Was it there was one of the golfers who was playing in the final round with Tiger in one of the majors, and in the morning he says to his son, who's a big Tiger fan, well, I'm beating your buddy Tiger. And his son says to him, you haven't beat him on Sunday yet. and he didn't. I can't remember who it was.
I'm also going with Rory because I just cannot see after last week going back to Liverpool, all of that, it seems so.
We'll know first hole, if he bounces off the first tee, give him the trophy.
Yeah.
Call it for the week because he'll win for sure. Just speaking of Fleetwood being a local hero, the last time that happened was when they played at Birkdale in 2017. Huggy, I don't know whether you remember this. There was a lot they really upped him big before the tournament, the local press. Yeah. He had a pretty bad first round, and the headline in one of the tabloids the next day was Fleetwood hack. It's cruel, but it's brilliant too. Fleetwood hack.
We move along to the Australians, and there is, at this stage, 10 Australians in the field, and Cam Davis is actually the first alternate, so I'm sure he'll be lingering around the area.
Chance. Less of a chance than most weeks because people are really reluctant to pull out, but he'll be a good chance.
Absolutely, unless Huggy does us all a favour and kick someone in the knee on walking past on the range.
Well, he's on the range with a wedge in hand. Knees will be in danger.
Yeah, that's right.
The sickening knee high fence.
That's exactly right.
Rod, can you take us through that list and who might be our best chance? Probably outside of Cam, given we've given him a fair bit of attention.
Yeah. Hayden Barron, Harrison Crowe, Connor McKinney, Travis Smythe. We'll talk about Connor McKinney. Micheluzzi, as you mentioned, Lucas Herbert, Jason Day, Min Woo, Adam Scott, and Cam Smith. Min Woo's already just a first name, isn't he?
Oh, Min Woo is a first name. Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
Let's start with the debutantes. Hayden Barron, it's his first Open. Big finish at the Australian Open last year to get one of the 3 cards that was on offer there.
Birdie Eagle.
Birdie Eagle finish, exactly right. Yep. like a lot of these guys, we'll say this a lot, it's a big step up this week. What this is a great week to learn where your game stands in relation to the best. He can wander up and down the range and go, oh, I haven't got that shot, I don't have that shot, I don't have that shot. I'm pretty good in my backyard, but...
Really good guy. And
lovely bloke. Good beard.
Worked as a greenkeeper at the West Australian during COVID.
Turned pro pretty late.
And told us yesterday, he goes, I've been having a great week. I keep going over and talking to the greenkeepers. And I said, have you gone and spoken to another player about how to play? He goes, no, I just keep talking to the greenkeepers. Okay, that's good. Yep.
Harrison Crowe, we know Harrison's no stranger to performing under pressure. Won the New South Wales Open, obviously, as an amateur. Won the Asia Pacific Amateur, which is how we got here. Played in the Masters. That experience will help him this week. But again... big step up and another chance to see where his game maybe has gotten further along the road from the Masters to here. Connor McKinney now, it depends how he goes this week, Huggy. I know you'll claim him if he plays well. We'll claim him if he plays well. He's an adopted Australian, originally from Scotland, now lives here. Australian Amateur Champion last week. Qualified at Dundonald Links, I think.
Yeah, I think Dundonald, yeah.
That's right.
Yeah, which is look, that's a feather in his cap to qualify for the Open. That takes some good golf because someone's going to shoot lights out at those qualifying events every day. Again, you can't see a claret jug in Connor McKinney's immediate future, as in this week, but another great learning experience for a guy who's got potential. Trav Smythe, perennial contender on the Asian Tour, a player who's learning his craft year by year by year, getting better and better and better. This is his first major, and for him, it will be a really good. He's already really excited. I saw him tweet the other week. He couldn't be happier about being there. I don't see a claret jug for any of these guys, but look, a made cut for Trav would be... yeah, I think good week. Yeah, I think the same for David Micheluzzi. It's his first Open, had a real coming of age over the Australian summer. A few valuable starts in Europe, which you just mentioned. Been at Royal Liverpool for the last week and a half, so good on him there. 62 in the third round in Denmark 2 weeks ago. So he clearly has got some sort of form. The other 3 rounds weren't as good, but they weren't poor either.
Working with a short game coach who's told him to play more like Seve.
Oh. It's good advice, isn't it?
That'll endear him to everyone in the world.
That's never bad advice.
No, that's exactly right. He missed the cut at the PGA at Oak Hill.
Got into that the week before. It was,
exactly. But look, again, a made cut here, like for Trevor Smythe, would be a good result for David. And look, he'll enjoy the week no matter what. He's a changed man. He was 2 years ago. He was not the happy-go-lucky guy that he is now. But his golf's turned around and everything has. So now we get into the guys who played here before. Lucas Herbert. I reckon he's the dark horse of the Australians. Yeah, it's been a bit of an up and down year. When he's good, he's very good. When he's off, has a tendency to miss cuts. Nothing wrong with that in professional golf. There's a lot of argument about whether you'd rather be consistent every week or have brilliant weeks and terrible weeks. I think the brilliant weeks and terrible weeks has been the key to successful professional careers over the years in terms of money made and whatnot. If he gets off to a good start, I think for Lucas.
Yeah, absolutely.
Really, he's a confidence player. When his confidence is up, a bit like Rory, he starts to really struggle. This is more of a swagger than a bounce.
Yeah.
So, look, anything could happen with Lucas, but he's a better player than I gave him credit for early in his career, and I'll eat that piece of humble pie yet again, Lucas, if you're listening. And good luck to you. I hope you have a good week this week. Jason Day now, is there a more interesting Australian this year? Had us all excited for the first half of the year as he got better and better and better in the comeback, and then it peaked with a fantastic win in Texas, and let's be frank, rubbish since.
Yeah.
It just
struggling to play weekends. Yeah,
thought that we'd see him go beautifully after that. His last start was a tied 45th at the Travellers. Pardon me, missed 3 cuts between his win and there. So I don't know. What do you say about Jason Day? We've all seen Jason Day. If he plays like Jason Day used to play, he'll be there at the end. But who can know? Min Woo, bigger the spotlight, the more scrutiny on him, the happier he is.
Yeah, absolutely.
Pardon me, and he's really built that personality. He's become really quite a star in the States. He's always a favourite of the European Tour social media guys. He'll be happy this week. But again, Minwoo, anything can happen with me. He's better than he used to be. He was very volatile early in his career. Pardon me, but he's got such imagination, such great hands, such incredible natural talent. He's a victim sometimes of his own talent, I think. So it would be no surprise if we're up late Sunday night, Monday morning, watching Minwoo. Adam Scott. 22 starts, 17 cuts, 5 top 10s, couple of close calls. He looks ageless. He swings it as well as he ever does. He's been disappointing in the majors this year. Missed the cut at LA Country Club, midfield at Oak Hill and Augusta. Are we at the beginning of the end of the Adam Scott era, perhaps? I don't know. I still like him. He's still one of my favourite players. He's beautiful to watch. Huggy?
Yeah, I mean...
You've been a fan of Adam Scott for a long time. Wasn't he the one that you wrote about, they say never meet your heroes, but... He was the one that changed your mind.
I love Adam Scott. Beautiful swing, as you say, and a great guy. Always helpful, always polite. I mean, and I'm not always saying I agree with everything he says, but what a good ambassador for golf he's been over the years. I mean, he's the guy that you would. It's an old saying, I know, but you'd want your daughter to bring somebody like him home, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
He'd make you look bad, but you'd be happy for her.
There is that. Yes.
Yeah. What would you get him for Christmas?
Mate, he's got everything.
There is nothing you can buy Adam Scott, and hasn't been since he was about 20. Look, on any given week, there's no doubt he could get the job done. Wouldn't it be wonderful to see Adam finish his career with 2 majors and one of them an Open after the heartbreak was it 10 years ago now, wasn't it?
Yeah.
At Lytham. But I just don't know. His game on the course, and look, he might have been as distracted like Rory has been with all this live stuff. He's been pretty heavily involved at the top end of all of that as well. So
he strikes as one of these guys who's going to bob up and win one late, kind of like Ernie did to beat Adam.
Yeah, maybe.
But he's been so consistent that he hasn't had the chance to disappear a little bit from view yet. So he's so there. I mean, the opening 2 rounds of the PGA this year, he was playing such good golf and then hit some awful golf shots.
Threw it away in 2 holes.
Yeah.
But look, and you think about it, he has been at the top of professional golf. He's been one of the players you talk about for 20 years. 2 years.
20-something years, yeah.
2000 he kind of made his debut. I remember watching him hit snipe hook his very first tee shot as a professional off the first tee at the Australian when he got an invite to the Greg Norton. He might have even still been an amateur. But, look, at some point it has to come to an end, obviously. He knows the window's closing. I've heard him talk about it. It might be more closed than we maybe thought based on this year. But, look, it would be great to see him this week. And Cam Smith, the defending champion. He's the world's best putter, probably. Comes into the week off a win, as you said, at Liv. But what does it all mean for this week? I don't know. I'd be surprised if he's not somewhere near there. But as Huggy said, he's been top 10 in the last 2 majors, but without ever really threatening. Yep. Could be another one of those weeks for him where he could run away with it. Who knows? He's got a bit of attitude, Cam. If he gets asked some curly questions at all this week, absolutely, he'll respond to that. Bit Koepka-like. Koepka loves nothing more than have a chip on his shoulder. Tiger was like that too, wasn't he, Huggy? If he could find something to hate for the week, look out. Because he'd be in form.
Michael Jordan in basketball was notorious for that as well, to the point where he actually just made them up himself.
Yeah, made them up himself. Yeah.
David McKenzie told me. David McKenzie's been a fabulous journeyman player. I mean, he's made a great living playing golf all around the world for a lot of years. And he told me that sometimes he'll do that. He'll be walking from the car park to the clubhouse and a volunteer will do something. He said, and you feel bad afterwards, but you got to get ratty with the volunteer and tell them not to do that because that lifts you, and now you're in the right frame of mind to play golf. So, sure. And I think Cam's a little bit like that.
Yeah,
he likes to prove people wrong. I think Cam.
I think so. I think it's a mix of having a lot of fun. I think he likes to really have fun. And I think links golf kind of brings that out in him, the prep and everything like that, and just having fun on a golf course that's different. But I think he likes this idea that he's small and, I'm up against the bigger guys and all that sort of stuff, but it's kind of hard to balance that when you are one of the best players in the world and everyone knows you are. So
it's funny, we talked about Fitzpatrick just on that, Huggy. Something happens to players, doesn't it, once they've sort of won a major? Jeff Ogilvy talked about this. The first thing that happens is apparently everything you say has merit, whereas you're saying the same thing as you did last week when no one listened. Now everybody wants to know. But everybody else around you changes, don't they, the way they deal with you and talk to you. And there might have been a bit of that for Fitzpatrick. I don't know how you'd prepare for that, but you win a US Open and suddenly there's a pressure that comes with it. A lot of players have talked about it in the past. Now I've got to play like a US Open champ. Every first tee, Matt Fitzpatrick, US Open champion, and you just get this constant reinforcement. So every shot you hit that's not 100% goes, US Open champions don't hit those. There's those kind of things that can happen. I wonder whether that might be a bit of what's happened with Matt Fitzpatrick.
Well, you're right. That might be just what he needs. That he's no longer a major champion. He's a former major champion now. He missed the cut in Scotland at the weekend there, just before the weekend, just on a course where he'd done well before, and he really didn't talk himself up this afternoon. Ordinarily, I'd be with you on him on this kind of golf course and his conditions and all the rest of it, but it's just a fact of life that he's just not playing that well at the moment.
Well enough, yeah.
With all those Australians, let's get a top Australian pick. Huggy, you're an adopted Australian. Pick your favourite fellow
you and
country.
Conor McKinney.
Well, I've been sitting here smiling to myself at the pair of you. I mean, you've done a great job the last 10 minutes of looking for the positives in the midst of all this. But I tell you what, there is none of those guys that's got any chance of winning the Open this week. You can forget it. None of them are good enough at right this minute, I'm afraid.
Okay.
I hate to say that,
That's okay.
but that's what I think.
Who's going to be the pick of this
Who's
bunch
going to
of
be the
losers,
pick of the
Huggy?
bunch? Who's going to be the best loser?
Wow. I was kind of with you with on Lucas Herbert, who I love watching Lucas play because you never quite know what you're going to get, but he's exciting to watch when he's going well, and he's the kind of guy that if he does get going early, like Rod said, you never know with him.
Yeah.
So it's a long shot, but that's if I'm forced into saying something positive about any of them, that would be the one.
Yeah. He's not afraid at the moment either, Luke. So I remember the first tournament when he hit one of the he had said it himself, worst 3-wood he's hit since he was a teenager. To fall into a playoff and then wins the playoff with one of the best wedges you've ever seen to about 5 feet. So,
well, when he played his first Open, I think it was 2018, he just walked up to Tiger and said, "Can we play some holes together?"
That's right.
So he's got some front, so it's good. Rod,
didn't he also ask Brooks Koepka and somebody else? And they said, yeah. And he got to the team. They didn't turn up.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll play with it. Not.
Rod, your top Australian?
Look, Cam Smith, I think, is probably the standout on all that, but I'm going to take a punt on Min Woo. I think he'll be the best of the Australians this week, assuming he makes the cut, which he might not. Who knows?
I'm also going to take a punt on Adam Scott, despite the fact you've denigrated his career to this point. I think he actually played quite well here in 2014. Okay. So
2014, it's a long time ago.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. That's what
the
we're going with.
You get the further along ago.
That's okay.
Not that long ago for Rory. It's a long time ago for me and Huggy.
So I think Adam's got some good memories, and it's close. And so, like I said earlier, I think Cam's driver issue might be a bit of a problem this week. Minwoo, yeah, sure, but Minwoo actually really contending in one of these is yet to happen. He's got close.
Players is the closest he's been to a genuine contention, and he didn't do particularly well.
Correct.
But hopefully he learned from it.
Yeah.
Get that grin off your
again,
face.
boys, by the way, but it's not going to happen.
Get that grin off your face, Huggy.
Let's move to outside chances and some people who don't typically get mentioned. Is there anybody from each of you that you think is our best chance of an outsider? You can run through the whole list of Scottish players, seeing as you've denigrated our country.
I feel the same way about the Scots. I mean, they're doing pretty much okay in second-rate European Tour events, but that's what seems to be the limit at the moment. But I live in hope that the one or two of them will kick on. So,
Rod,
for an outsider, I'm going with one of the twins, if you can call him an outsider, Nikolai. It's easier at the moment to tell the difference between the two of them because Nikolai's got some facial hair going, which distinguishes himself from his brother. The weird thing about those two is that they never seem to play well at the same time.
No.
When Rasmus won a couple of weeks ago, Nikolai missed a cut, and then Rasmus missed a cut last week, and Nikolai did well in Scotland. So
they're no Vardens.
No, that's true. That's true. But the legendary Harry and Tom.
Tom was his manager, wasn't he? It was a great story. Tom really looked after Harry Varden, if I'm not mistaken, did he not, throughout his career?
You're way ahead of me on that one.
No, I'm pretty sure.
I can't say I've ever put in a request for Harry Varden via his management, so I'm not sure.
Call yourselves golf journos. Anyway.
Best outsider from you.
I'm going to go with Ryan Fox because he likes links golf. That'll do. And he's a nice bloke.
He is a nice guy. Yeah, that's good.
He's a lovely guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's one of my favourites, actually.
Big and imposing bloke. You wouldn't want to fight him.
Oh, no. And the way he walks, he walks with just a menacing kind of
very much. He could be a bouncer if the golf doesn't work out.
Yeah, nice.
For sure.
I didn't even write down an outsider, so that's
outsiders
how
don't win opens, mate. Not at Royal Lytham.
My outsider is going to be Pablo Larrazabal.
Oh, well done.
Yeah.
Well done.
Wins what Huggy's just called second-rate European Tour events, but there's there you go. A ball striker, creative short game. Why not?
Volatile player.
Oh, yeah.
Didn't he get attacked by...
Got attacked
Hornets?
by wasps.
Hornets, wasn't it?
And then he won a tournament in South Africa where he got blisters from his shoes, so he kept taking his shoes off in between shots and carrying them.
Well, he's interesting at least.
Yeah, really very Spanish.
Look, just last on the Open to close, it is going to be, it's got the feel, this one, don't you think, Huggy, of being potentially a really good week? They always do, but this one feels like it could be. Rory and
I think the weather is going to be interesting enough to make it interesting. It's not going to be completely off the charts, I don't think. It's going to be like Scotland was. I mean, there was all this fuss about the wind, and it was pretty windy. But I from that part of the world, it wasn't anything.
Oh, you're going to be that guy. You're going to be that guy. These guys get it so good.
Well, until you've played in the February medal at Dunbar, I don't want to hear about wind. I mean, come on.
When you hit wedges along like at waist high, you don't get affected by the wind, Huggy. That's just a difference.
Well, there is that. But, yeah, I mean, it was tricky and,
But they call off the Open when it gets proper wind, Huggy. They did it in 2015 at the Open. Did they not do it in 2010 for a bit at the Open as well?
Well, that was only because that was nothing to do with the wind. That was because the greens were too fast. Every other course in Fife was open that day. I hasten to add. So it had more to do with the speed of the greens than it did the pace of the wind.
It was windy enough for Rory to hit a 2-iron into the last hole.
Well, yeah, exactly.
That's a decent wind.
It was challenging, and it was.
That's the wind you want, isn't it? That's the wind you want.
Possible,
I reckon. Yeah, that's the wind you want.
It's the wind you need with how far the golf ball goes.
No wind, no golf. Who said that?
And it allowed the best player in the field to separate himself as well. So there you go.
That's right. And the next best was a guy having a really unbelievable week who plays those conditions better than most.
We haven't talked. Nobody mentioned Robert McIntyre. Has he got a chance, Huggy?
If he plays his absolute best golf, I mean, he's proven that that's competitive at the highest level, but he hasn't done it very often lately. The performance in Scotland kind of came out of the blue. He was nowhere really in terms of Ryder Cup, but he's obviously got a chance now. But that was always going to be the case, that the last 2 or 3 spots in the European team were always going to go down to the guys who played well in the last 6 weeks or so, and he's off to a really good start on that front, obviously.
Really good player when he gets it going, but just struggle. Yeah.
Well, it tends to be a mental thing. I wonder, he looked quite emotional about that. It's been a long time since a Scot won the Scottish Open, hasn't it, Huggy? And he had a chance to do that. I think
Monty was the last one.
And I think he felt that, McIntyre. You got the sense that he kind of felt that. And that might be a real lift for him.
Yeah.
Might be the first step on the road back to what we think he's potentially capable of. He's a very mercurial sort of player, isn't he? With what's that game he plays when he's not playing golf? What do they call it?
Shinty.
Yeah.
So
it's legalised violence.
Yes, it's not the most orthodox, pretty golf swing, McIntyre's, is it? But he gets the ball around in good numbers when he's playing well, and that's really what top level golf's all about.
Yeah, his best golf, as I say, is competitive with anybody, or pretty much anybody. But again, he has to be right at that level. Anything less than that, and he's
falls away pretty quickly. Yeah.
Very quickly, we'll move from the
outsider.
Yeah.
Who'd you go with?
Pablo Larrazábal.
Oh, there you go. You did too. Sorry.
Very quickly before we'll move to off the Open. Very quickly before we go, Rod, little bit of detail on the Dow Great Lakes Invitational for the LPGA.
On the
Tour.
LPGA team event in Michigan, like Zurich, foursomes first and third round, 4-ball second and final. Jennifer Kupcho-Lizette Salas defending champion, scoring pretty good as you'd expect. Most interest this week's probably in some of the teams. Brooke Henderson and Lexi Thompson playing together. That could be interesting to watch. Maria Fassi's playing with the Solheim Cup captain Stacey Lewis. I doubt that's an accident.
Yep.
So there'd be some, because Maria Fassi's a player of enormous potential. Clubhead speed to burn, just a bit like McIntyre, has not lived up to the physical skills that she's got to this point. So there might be something in that. Here's a couple of names from the past. Paula Creamer is playing, as is Natalie Golbus. So they're clearly playing an opposite field event. You can't call it a serious golf tournament with those two. But there'll be a bit of nostalgia. Hannah Green playing with Sue O. It'd be great if they won, so I'm going to tip them.
Yeah, nice.
Good for Sue especially. So, but look, if you can't get enough golf, this will at least be somewhat interesting because it's different. It's at least different. It's not another 72-hole stroke play event. There's a couple of names in there that might be a bit interesting. So
it's a good week to do something different.
Very much.
Not to not have anything, but yeah.
Because you know what's going to go. Everyone at the club, all the spectators, everyone's going to be around the club watching the Open. That's what's right. And the Open will be the talk of the week amongst the players, amongst the fans. So it's like a celebration of the Open with a tournament built in with sort of a team event. So it's the right event to have this week. But
I'm also going to go with Hannah and Sue, so that's the way it is.
Yeah, Huggy didn't even know the tournament was on, so we won't ask him for a tip.
Scotland's Hannah Green.
I like anything with Scotland's Hannah Green involved. I'm all for it.
You weren't quite so bullish on Conor McKinney, I noticed, but Hannah Green, you're very keen to fly the flag.
Conor McKinney, I mean, I'm sorry, but he's 100% Scottish.
Conor McKinney might be the strongest in Huggy's argument of us claiming. Michael Sim probably previously before been born in Aberdeen.
Yeah.
It depends what you win to. Your resume dictates on the Huggy scale. The better your resume, the more Scottish you are.
That's right.
Well, I'm now claiming Lynn Grant as well, by the way.
Lynn Grant?
How'd you manage that?
Well, Lynn, with a name like Grant,
That's it.
Her grandfather was the Scottish boys champion.
Oh, okay.
Okay. There you go.
I didn't know that.
Inverness.
No, there you go. I didn't know that. Is Huggy just sitting still or is he frozen? No, I don't think he's frozen, Jimmy. I think he's actually gone. We've lost the might be the internet telling Huggy to go to bed. It's very late at night over there in the UK, so we'll let him go.
It is indeed, and he's going to be disappointed because he's going to miss out on our now touch on the Barracuda Championship. And I know Huggy's a big Barracuda Championship man.
I'm going to bet you London to a brick that Huggy doesn't even know the Barracuda Championship
No,
A exists or B is on this week.
He's a big modified Stableford guy, which is what we get this week, of course, with Stableford points for birdies, eagles, etc., like we all know from our club comps, but also
why can't they just have
penalising of bogeys.
Why can't they just have normal Stableford so everybody in the world can relate to it? Look, Rory had 46 points. What a great round of golf. Why can't they just do that?
It's a worrying thing when the PGA Tour in their storylines has, for a full explanation on the format, click to a separate article.
A whole other page to explain it. I've never understood that.
No, I mean it. I'm assuming it's to keep the scores within a reason because they generally finish around 40-something points. Sort of if you get to 40 points, you're in with a show. So I think that's what they'll be doing. But
nothing like club golf.
You
don't have 45 in a club day, you're not on the podium.
Exactly. So what used to be the Reno Tahoe Open returns to Tahoe Mountain Golf Club and its Old Greenwood course, which is 6,000 feet above sea level. So altitude, story of the week. Hear it all week. Yeah. This goes further, this goes further. Yep. We love it.
All goes further at altitude.
Exactly. As you would expect, as an alternate field for the Open Championship, it's not packed full of superstars, Keith Mitchell being the highest ranked player, and it's a bit of a mix of DP World and PGA Tour players once again. Co-sanctioned again, like it was last week. There is some Aussies there. Aaron Badley is getting a start. Grant Booth, who Monday qualified for his second PGA Tour event, who's been based in Las Vegas, Nevada, since he went to college there from Western Sydney. Greg Chalmers, 2016 champion of this event. Jeff Ogilvy, 2014 champion of this event. Harrison Endicott and Jason Scrivener, who is one of those DP World Tour players trying to get a card in America by winning this week.
He's backed himself, hasn't he? He lives there now, you told me.
He lives in Florida, so yeah, absolutely. So there is a few interesting names, guys like Nick Hardy, all these sort of players who haven't really gone on with it necessarily, like a Bo Hostler, Charlie Hoffman, a lot of veterans, bit of a mix of older and younger players. So there is some interest there, but we're not kidding anyone that the main focus will be there.
Hardcore fans maybe would be the ones who are going to tune into this.
And despite his absence, Logues man Ryo Hitsatsune is actually in the field.
Oh, okay.
Who continues his global efforts to play in every single country this year.
Let's hope he rubs Logue's face in it this week.
I'd like to see that.
That would be fabulous.
Without Huggy's tip, although I'm sure he, let's say tip Russell Knox. He's Scottish.
Yeah.
That's Huggy's tip. I'll call it.
There you go.
Your tip, Rod?
I'm going to go with Keith Mitchell, highest ranked player in the field. That's it. That's the extent of my research and reasoning.
Keith Mitchell, who would be a really good player at an Open Championship.
Flusher.
Yeah.
He really does hit
old school
really
golfer.
Good. Yeah, really.
Yeah. Yep. I'm going to go with Kramer Hickok, formerly Jordan Spieth's housemate until Jordan went and got married, so kick him out of the house.
Yeah, as you would.
Came and played New South Wales Open, Aussie Open a few years back. Really good player, really good ball striker as well. Lost in a playoff at...
Oh, yes.
I want to say a TPC maybe a year ago or 18 months ago. Looked like he might finally go on with it, but hasn't. So
really solid player. He's impressive at that New South Wales Open.
Yeah, really good player, really good attitude.
Yeah, very likeable.
Seems just a pretty classic Texan, I think, Kramer Hickok.
With that, yep.
So we'll go with those guys, and we will be back next week to cover what happened at the Open and what's coming in the week ahead, which includes yet another major because we've got the Evian Championship next week. In the meantime, pick up a copy of the August issue of Golf Australia with Cam Smith on the cover for even more final Open Championship prep. We also profile Grace Kim, and there's also a story from Mark Hayes about the latest golf course on the Melbourne Sandbelt, Furrows at Kingston Heath. That is very, very good.
Oh, the short course.
Yeah. Thank you for listening, and we'll be back next week with Playing from the Tips.